I didn't mean I won't try. I meant
I know, but the way that you said it was just.
All right, we are live. All right, cool.
We are live.
We are live.
Hi,
I'm sure
friends.
I'm sure you sent me over a bio, but I'm going to probably make you
Let's
tell
just
us
go
your
for
own.
it.
Yeah.
No, don't. I don't want to talk about me.
Okay. Well, you're going to have to. You're going to have to talk about you. This is about you. Well, hey, Sasha. Sasha is my virtual assistant.
Oh, hi.
And she does amazing work if you need help.
Nice. Yeah.
Okay, I'll make sure I put you guys in touch. I'll just tell the story of how I met you, and then maybe you can tell us your whole full title and everything.
Yes.
I remember we were at one of Cory Booker's events. I think you were hosting it, actually.
Moore.
I think
Corey
Moore. Why do I keep calling him Cory Booker? Cory Moore. One of his events, and I think you were hosting it, right?
I think
you were hosting
was.
that one.
I think
yeah,
it was
yeah.
It was the Women's Month one. Yep.
Yeah.
So that was March of last year?
That sounds right. That sounds right. That sounds right. Okay.
Yep.
And I saw you from across the room, and I was like, I want to be friends with that person. I want to go up and talk to her. And I did. I just went up and talked to you, and then we just.
Who are you with? Because I don't even remember who you were with. I was just like, I really like your vibe. I remember saying that too.
Nobody. I wasn't with anybody. You know. I'm sure.
You were saying, like it was like two other women, and I don't remember.
That might be true, but yeah, I just know I went to that by myself. I mean, I got most of them by myself. Yeah.
It seemed like you were with those other. I think it was other two women, and I to this day, and I'm like, I think it's the curly hair.
Yes. Well, yes, which we're going to talk about.
Yes,
so
we are.
It's going to be fun.
Yes,
okay, so tell us your official title, bio. Don't forget the Stanford thing.
What thing?
Didn't you go to Stanford? Wasn't that your college?
I went to Georgetown.
Georgetown. Okay, that's whatever. That's what I was thinking. Stanford.
Yeah. About me. So right now I am spending my days as a speaker, wardrobe stylist, and new book author. I speak and work on clients on their image and executive presence and executive style. Before I went out on my own as an entrepreneur 4 years ago, I spent 10 years in corporate merchandising, which means that I helped determine the pricing and the items that you saw in some of your hopefully favorite stores like The Gap and Old Navy and Banana Republic. I spent 10 years doing that before launching Wider Style and my speaking and styling career.
And what Morgan's leaving out is she speaks to these really huge corporations like Google, and weren't you at Porsche right before COVID?
I was at Porsche, Mercedes-Benz. I really have been fortunate to get to talk about executive presence to some really great brands who value authenticity and identifying your best self and showing up as your best self.
Love it. As you know,
Thank
love
you.
all those parts of your message. Yeah. And Morgan and I have just been friends since I guess it was March of last year, and just we'll go out to coffee.
2 years, Aaron, or is it just one?
I think it's just been one. That sounds right.
Okay.
That date sounds right. Yeah. Okay. Just seems like longer.
Okay.
Because of COVID.
Yeah, everything seems longer because of COVID.
And Morgan was actually really instrumental in why we have this interview series, why I'm interviewing amazing women.
Really?
Yeah, because do you remember our walk? We went on a walk social justice, when everything started happening, we went on a walk, and socially distanced walk. And I said, and you said something about you can't be silent. And I said, well, I don't feel like I can speak for Black people. And you said very clearly,
it's not your job.
You're not speaking for Black people. You are speaking about white privilege, and you are opening up those conversations with white people about white privilege. And that just really hit home for me, and really, it gave me a reset and a reframe and a way of being here and having these conversations. And I think also, not feeling like I have to be a savior,
We don't want, I don't want to say we, as I'm not speaking for all Black people, but that's not your job. No,
Right.
no. I think that sometimes the problem with well-meaning white people is the savior complex, because then that underlines the idea that Black people can't do for themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it takes away a voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to
So
say that, like, when was that? Like that walk when we got rained
a
on?
couple
Like
weeks ago,
a couple weeks ago.
yeah.
That was a really great conversation. And I think I thank you for being so willing to have it and so open and asking genuine questions, and to not be on the defensive, and to just really come from a place of wanting to hear my thoughts and not try to fix or not be on the defensive. And then, Aaron, to see what you've done in 2 weeks and the writings that you talked about and the things that you were posting, I'm just really, really proud of you. And then when I told you that you were gonna fuck up, and again, I didn't think, I knew you wouldn't really, but to see how you've just like gone and nowhere near fucked up, but have like excelled in so many ways in this, and with an authenticity and a passion that is just really, really admirable and very inspiring.
Thank you. That really touches me. It means a lot. And yeah, I think a shift I had to make, if I can add anything to that, is that I think you helped me walk through this too, was I've kind of felt in the beginning like, well, I don't have a big enough platform. I don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't have hundreds of thousands of people, or even thousands, really. So why do I even share stuff? Like what? And I think you just really helped me shift that about like, look, we're looking for people to stand up right now and say, hey, I'm behind this, and hey, I'm a part of this, and it doesn't matter, what that platform looks like,
And it starts in your inner circle. Like if every person worked on their inner circle of like the 5 or 6 closest people, then imagine what difference this would be. Like it really is checking the mindset of yourself and your privilege that you don't even know that you may have right now, and then raising your children to be aware of it and to change it and to speak up about it, and your spouses and your parents and your girlfriends. Like that's really what this is about. Like it's not about getting on the largest, I mean, the platforms are great and those are helpful, but it's the everyday conversations that matter, the ones that stick.
And those are the hardest.
Those are the hardest.
Those are the hardest. Yeah.
The most
and
intimate ones. Yeah.
And I don't know that, there's definitely places I've fallen down, and those things aren't in the public sphere, so people aren't seeing them, but there's places I've fallen down on those, and I will again. Like there's conversations I'm not looking forward to having, and can honestly see myself running away from. So those are the places where we get to do better.
You get to do better, and I would just, and I think I know that you are better than running away from things. I think your fireballness and your impatience, I think, won't let you. But I think also the keeping in mind that the capability you have to run away from it is a privilege in of itself. And like this is something that is always something that I'm thinking about. Like I live in Brookhaven. I went for a run this morning. Well, a run/jog. I'm newly into this fitness thing, and there are 2 profound moments when I was on my run where I was like, wow, like this is I'm always Black in America, but this is what it felt like. I'm gonna tell you these 2 stories quickly. The first one was there is a like the neighborhood that I run in. There's like a little mini like boulevardy kind of like little parky thing with a couple benches and like this little perfect cement strip that's perfect for me to jump rope. And when I was ending my walk and headed that way, there was a car parked there, where a car had stopped there, and it looked like a husband and wife were like exchanging, like one was getting out to run, and then he was going to drive the car. And I purposely stayed very far away from that car, even though I was there, because I was like, I don't want them to think that I'm walking up on them and they pull a gun out on me. That was my thought.
God.
Like
it
was
God,
literally
Morgan.
like I was constantly like, I need to stay away from this car so that they don't think that I am doing anything. And another example was I was on the way to that little spot running, walking, and a white pickup truck with a white man drove past me and stopped at a house kind of ahead of me, and I panicked. And I know this is gonna sound crazy, but white men are scary. White men are public enemy number one for Black people. Like, and white men honestly are public enemy for America and are terrorists in a lot of ways, like the ones who are doing a lot of crime. And that to me was like, did my parents know where I am? Did my, what's
Oh
going to
my
happen with
God.
this car? And that's what that is the culture and climate that people who look like me have lived in forever, but it's now even heightened. And I live in Atlanta and I live in the South where things can happen and it won't be a big deal, possibly. It won't even make the news, or that person won't be held accountable.
I wish everybody could hear these conversations and realize that difference, because those are things I don't think about
And you
ever.
never would have crossed your mind about.
No.
Never. Yep.
No.
Yep.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's real. Like it's and it's heightened like right now, but there's a like, especially Black men have always lived this way, have always lived in calculating every single move that they do and how it can be perceived by someone. And yes, I have been too, but now it's even heightened. It's absolutely even heightened. Yep.
Well, that's, yeah, something I hadn't even considered is that's, increasing the fear factor too,
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
people are waking up, but then there's the opposite side of that coin, which is people are getting scared
And
that
getting
their
more
way of
violent.
life
Yeah.
is threatened. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
thank you.
Exactly.
Well, let's talk about something that on its surface seems a little bit lighter, but has a lot of really deep stuff around it, including structural racism, you know, what I'm always talking about, which is who we're allowed to be and what we're allowed to do and how we're allowed to show up. And that is the subject of hair.
Hair. Yes.
Yeah. So I think maybe, how should we even delve in? Maybe walk us back just a little bit to what it's like for a little Black girl who has maybe hair that doesn't look like yours necessarily, but much tighter curls.
Okay, I can't talk to that because that's not my experience. So don't lump all Black people as the same kind of thing.
There we go. Thank you.
Yep, that's not my experience. I will say, let's open the conversation with this. As a wardrobe consultant and a speaker, when I go in these corporate companies, most I do a lot of talking about wardrobe and image, right? Like I love talking about clothes. Like clothes is my sweet spot. But a lot of times I get asked the questions about hair and makeup. And first thing about me, like, don't let this pink lipstick fool you. Like makeup is like absolutely a new thing for me. So I'm not the expert in that. The hair is also not something that I'm expert in because this is just how it grows out of my head and I pay people to color it and cut it and that's it. But there was a specific moment that happened. I was at a college, an all women's college, and a Black woman asked me like, well, what about my hair? What should I, this was to get them prepared to go into either interviewing for real jobs after college or to get ready for an internship that was going to be in the summer. So this was all about professional appearance and executive presence. And the young woman said, she was a senior graduating. She's like, well, what am I supposed to do with my hair? I have an afro, but I feel like I can't get a job that way. And that to me, those conversations and that was like I think the end of like 2 or 3 questions before that, where another young woman said, I had worked in a Black law firm and I wore my braids for one summer, but now I'm going to a white law firm and I feel like I need to put a weave in. And so these are all of these conversations of what's acceptable, quote unquote, per se, with how I wear my hair. And the last question of, well, I need to relax my hair because I need a job was a huge trigger for me. And I look back on that, and this wasn't my proudest moment, but I said, you do not need to do that. Like I was very adamant, like I want you to show up as your best self. Whatever you feel good in is the way that you need to walk into that new job. And her response was, well, I can't get a job with an afro. And I said, that belief that you have is nothing that I can change. If that's something that you believe about yourself, that will be true, but that's not something that I can convince you of otherwise. And that is a mindset that, I mean, this is a young college student who's what, 20 into, so she was born in 2000. So this is something that's generationally still happening, where there's a mindset that in order to be acceptable, to be quote unquote professional, you cannot show up with your hair the way that it grows out of your head. Like you have to do something with it. Like the term relaxer is to generally straighten your hair to make white people relax around you.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would think I was telling you on a different conversation, I've always been interested in this topic because I have curly hair, right? And people
I'm
with
curious, as with white women with curly hair, is there like, because I resonate with y'all in like a different way. So is there like, for the
oh
most
yeah,
part, is there like a thing in the white, like with white folks with like curly versus?
oh yeah, for sure. And I think, honestly, I didn't put it together until a couple years ago that maybe even that has something to do with systemic racism. We don't want your hair to look other, we don't want your hair to look like other cultures, other races, right? Because there's definitely a pressure. And I'll say I was very lucky that my parents were never part of this pressure ever. They were always on the like, just wear your hair natural,
Don't tell me
but
to straighten it. Yep.
yeah, and would tell me like, we love your curls. Of course, all the right things. But yeah, from my hair started really curling around 11, 12 or so. And from kind of then on, people would say to me, oh, you should straighten. It looks so much better straight. You should straighten. You should straighten. I mean, and that message is still, it's really still present. Like straighter hair is more professional. And there's a bunch of different.
Headshot, you have straighter hair.
I do. That actually was naturally straighter because I just had my first child, and like your hair gets all crazy with pregnancy and
Oh
hormones.
yeah.
So I didn't actually even have to do anything for it to look that straight, but yes, it is straighter in there. And yeah. And there's still this thing of like, okay, well, maybe that looks more professional, and it's
I
so.
hate when I see clients, even like when I style weddings, white women or black women feel like they have to straighten their hair for their weddings. And I'm like, you wear your hair curly every other day. Why would you want to get married and not look like how you actually look to your husband or your mate on the day? Like, I don't get it. I do not get it.
There's a lot
Yeah,
of
there's a lot.
stuff there.
They reminded me, Aaron, of this story. When you're talking, I thought about this story. I was in Target over off of Druid Hills, and I was looking for a shampoo, and I was in like the quote unquote ethnic hair section, and there was this white woman with two daughters, one who had straight blonde hair, and the other was the younger sister. She had the kinkiest, curliest blonde hair that I like had really ever. It was her curls are tighter than mine actually, probably. And the mother was like, I don't know what to do. Like, can you help me? And I was like, and actually it wasn't really tight. I just remember it was being big and frizzy. Like, it was very clear that she was trying to, and I found out, like, brush her curls and treat her curls like her sister and her mother did. And she was just looking miserable standing in this aisle. And it hurt me because I was like, I can't, like, I'm trying to help you, but like, I look so different from you to you that like, you're not even
Computing.
you're not even computing, because I was like, do not brush your curls. Here's like, here's some options for you. And I told her about the salon that I've told you about before. But then I was left thinking, like, I cracked me. I was like, this little white girl has way more black in her than anybody in that family wants to admit. Like, there is somebody who's not quote unquote totally white in the mix somewhere that nobody's admitting to, if that's her biological mother, because there was no way that child had curly, but it was still like this. She was miserable. She looked so sad that she, like, her sister was like annoyed that they were like in this aisle and like wasn't, and she's like, her mom couldn't figure it out. And I mean, her hair looked a mess, and it was really, really sad.
Well, yeah. And I mean, in terms of just like straight up hair tips for people, I think it took me years before somebody finally let me in on, you don't brush curly hair ever, 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 ever. And I don't even comb mine anymore. Like, I get out of I put tons of conditioner, get out and just finger,
Yep.
and that alone will change your hair life if you have curls. for sure. But I mean, it's like we all had to go through this process of figuring that stuff out on our own, like what works for you and like what products work for you. And nobody ever sat me down. It's like, this is what you do for curls. I feel like I didn't learn that stuff until I was in
I
my
had
20s.
no idea like curls were like the stepchild of the white people. I had no idea.
I mean, people aren't going to admit that. Nobody's like, you know, I talk about it. I talk about it when I do my talks. You know, I talk about having curly hair and how the ideal coach in my mind has this straight hair, straight blonde hair, right? Because that's the ideal. That's the freaking ideal, right? Is I even when I was little, I had an alter ego that I was going to be. Her name was Rosie Marie Brown, and she had long, straight hair.
Wow. Yeah, I grew up in Minnesota, was oftentimes like the only black girl or not that many black kids. And I think it was kindergarten, pre-K, where I became, I think my like the daycare or pre-K teachers told my mom that I had become obsessed with like the white Barbies. And that like because that was all I was seeing, that was all I wanted to play with. And my mom, God bless her, went into like overdrive and ordered every black magazine. And I would just look and I had black Barbies at home and dolls, but it was like I just idolized the white ones. So like I remember to my love of magazines, I think stemmed from her getting like we had magazines all throughout the house, like Essence and Ebony and Jet and all of these, like to see black beauty because I wasn't seeing it that often in elementary school and pre-K, that very young age.
When do you feel like you kind of got a glimmer of, hey, this hair thing, this image thing actually doesn't have anything to do with hair?
Ask your question one more time.
Like at what age or, you know, what time frame did you kind of come to a realization like that we're not just talking about hair here?
Well, I think I can't separate because I've always been like, for you, you're white with curly hair. For me, my blackness always led. So like, it's not, I was always black. And so like my hair and my blackness are together. Like, I think I've always,
okay. Yeah. Let me ask it a different way that maybe like, like, okay, for instance, in your Facebook Live the other day, you were talking about, okay, the Crown Act and how women there had to be a bill passed to say women are allowed to show up at work with the hair that they want to have.
Yep.
Like, how should I put this? A couple years ago, I read this Essence article that was talking about hair and relating it to racism. And I had never, ever made that connection. So do you feel like...
I think hair is a part of inherent racism. Yes. And it's just one of the many, many facets of racism that shows up. I think I think that is kind of like cause it's literally like if you think like hair is the part of the institution of racism, and the fact that like I had to go to a separate aisle to find my products in Target. There's, you know, like that's a prime example of, or like you hear all of the black models talking about when they go on video set or movie or film sets that none of the stylists know how to style black hair or have black makeup foundation to match. Like the hair is just one of the byproducts of the idea that white people are superior, or the idea that they are the majority, and that all of our actions have to quote unquote get in line and get straightened to mirror whiteness. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. Yeah. I guess what I'm asking is because I read that book that I was sharing with you that I'll try to it's called Twisted. If you guys want to check it out on Amazon, but she shares how hair was actually a much bigger component in that than some other things were. For instance, the author of this book has very light skin, but very kinky. That's her term, kinky hair. And so people, when she was a little girl, would say basically things like, oh, well, you have great skin, too bad about your hair.
Yes.
And that was just like such a, God, that was honestly such a wake up call to me to think about like,
there's gradations. Again, it all goes back to whiteness. So like your
Right.
skin is quote unquote better if you're lighter, or if you're closer to white. Your hair quote unquote is better if it's closer to straight, i.e. closer to white. Yes, that is absolutely thing. And I have to be aware and own my privilege of the curls that grow out of my hair are quote unquote looser than other black women's hair. So like sometimes when I like back to that example at that college, um, where I was saying wear your hair as it grows out of your head, then they kind of like I'm aware that they eye roll me because my hair quote unquote is a little bit more palatable per se to white curls or to white people than other versions of curls or African American hair. So yes, there's a caste system and everything, especially with people who are quote unquote the oppressed. Like you find ways, like in the Indians over in India do like like it's the same thing of like dark skin versus light skin. Um, Hispanic cultures, Asian cultures has the same thing. Like the darker you are, the further you are from superiorness. Um, the hair is also intricably in what is that word?
Inextricably.
Inextricably linked to that. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how much you feel like recapping what you kind of said in your Facebook Live the other day, but I just found it really powerful and emotional what you shared of
Cool. I'll read it because it's a reading from a section of my book.
awesome.
Let me find that chapter. Oh, it's over here.
And what's the name of your book, Morgan, so people
My
can...
book is called The Worthy Wardrobe. It's my love letter to every woman, all races, all ages, all genders. I'm sorry, not genders. It's for women who are those who identify themselves as women. All races, all ages, all professions, for any woman who's ever felt like she wasn't good enough or pretty enough, and that the fashion world wasn't for her. So the book
Which
is going to
is
be on Amazon and available end of July, early August. But right now I'm doing a pre-sale campaign. If you go to my website, you can order a copy of the book. I'll ship it when it's done. And in the meantime, every Monday night I do in my private Facebook group, we do Worthy Wardrobe Community Nights where we talk about sneak peek chapters of the book. We talk about topics that are going on. Like for example, the first Monday after George Floyd was murdered, we had a really heartfelt conversation about how we were feeling. And one of the women actually who works at a bank, who was a client of mine, who had always wearing her hair straight because quote unquote it was professional. Her hair was curly. It was actually, and so I commented and she said, it's a new day now. It's a new time. And I'm showing up differently. So which is a great segue into this is a chapter that I call the hero's journey in the book. And it talks about professionalism and how we show up and owning our professionalism. And the Crown Act section that I talk about is a little bit, we kind of talked about this already, but I will just repeat what's written here. After every one of my presentations, it never fails that a woman in the audience asks me what hairstyles and makeup applications are deemed professional. I especially get questions from Black women about their hair. A question such as, what will people think if I wear my hair in braids, is more about permission than professionalism. Just as there have been so many unspoken rules about wardrobe choices, there are many pressures to conform when it comes to beauty. Due to subtle and the not so subtle judgments, Black women need legal protection in order to wear their hair as it grows out of their head. In 2020, the Crown Act, which stands for Create a Respectful and Open Workplace for Natural Hair Act, was passed in California and New York to ensure protection against discrimination based on hairstyles by extending statutory protection to hair texture and protective styles in the Fair Employment and Housing Act and state education codes. In the year 2020, it's no wonder why so many Black women are not sure what's deemed quote unquote professional. They've literally been brainwashed to think that there's something wrong with their hair. It's time to change that narrative. So my advice is this: as long as you think you've looked like you've pulled yourself together, wear your hair however you feel pretty. By creating there's something to be said about creating your hair, using your hair as part of your brand and creating a consistent look. But if switching it up gives you the confidence you need to start each day feeling like a boss, keep your options open. No matter what color, texture, or style you choose for your hair, consider what it is that you want to be known for and if your hair complements that message.
So to our well-meaning white people who are watching this,
Hi.
What can we do better in terms of just generally? And I think on the topic of hair, because to me, I feel like
the number one rule, Erin, for every white person: don't touch anybody's hair. And
okay.
It's crazy. No, you laugh because I know you would never do that, but every Black woman has an example for the white woman or a white man has reached to touch her hair, and that goes back to the idea that you get to have white people have access to everything, like everything for your consumption. So do not reach to touch anybody's hair. Period.
Okay.
Do not make hair a quote unquote discussion. Like everybody, I'll be honest, when I got to Atlanta, coming from the cities I've lived in, it was my first time actually being aware that some of my blonde white coworkers wear extensions. And I was like, I thought that was only for like Black people. So I say that to say that like everybody wears extensions or quote unquote weaves or wigs sometimes. So if someone comes in looking differently than from the day before, do not make a big deal out of it. Just go about, unless you like it, say I like it, but that's, even then, just don't usually, because it doesn't usually end well. Like it's not to be the focus of conversation. It's how I choose to present myself and feel good about myself and keep it moving. Like I think my hair and my looks are not up for quote unquote discussion. It doesn't.
And consumption.
And consumption. It's not about consumption. It's not at all. I would also just be conscious, like I think there's a lot of like appropriation again, like when it's a white girl wears extensions, it's extensions, but a Black woman does it, it's weave. Or when white women wear braids and with Black women it's cornrows. Like there's a lot of what's the word, I forgot it's called, but owning the historical context of where your hairstyles come from. Like the Bo Derek moment, or like when the Kardashians wear quote unquote cornrows, it's a trend. Or even like nail art, that's something that's often like Black community, we are expressive, we're creative, and those are things that are origin with us. So if you're going to do those styles, respect the people and the culture and the race that brought them to you.
Wow. The nail art, I didn't even think of that one.
Nail art is like Black people did that.
Yeah.
But, like everything that's quote unquote, and I was just seeing, it was a really great post on Instagram. I'll try to find it and send it to you. Like a lot of major trends started like athleisure wear. That was an urban streetwear trend that came like Black people wear sneakers all the time. Like that was something that's a trend. Gold hoops and big chunky gold earrings.
Right.
That started off with Black people. Like I think again, there's a thing that Black people say where they like us, but they like what we create, but they don't want us. And so again, acknowledging you want to be like us, but you don't want to be us. And that's the thing that is just fascinating with white America.
Yeah, and not okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, she talks a lot about that in that book, and how a lot about how, when white women wear braids, it's considered edgy, but it wasn't okay when we saw that, we have other words for it when we see it on Black women, right?
Absolutely.
And so what is that? What's that? Yeah. Why is it cool and edgy when the Kardashians do it? But Black women have doing this and men have been doing this for forever. Yeah. And she also talks about in that book something that you're going to find super fascinating, which is how math plays into hair, and how these really cool mathematicians and astronomers from Africa were doing fractals like way back in the day, and that plays into the really intricate hair patterns that are created. Yeah, it's really fascinating. But that book is so deep, I can't even tell you. It's like,
it's not available yet, so I need to like pre-order my copy. And it's so funny because I can't braid to save my life. Like my mother can't either. Like it was like, and growing up, like I would get shipped to the Africans and who are like other like literally African salons who would get my hair braided because I couldn't do it. Still can't.
Well, I just I'm so appreciative of this conversation and such good advice. I mean, I think, it's kind of like the advice a little bit around, when the Me Too movement started happening, and you would hear things from guys like, well, what am I allowed to say then? Can I even tell a woman she looks pretty? And it's like, well, how about just no? Like, how about I don't have to be defined by your gaze. I don't have to be defined by what you think of me and my appearance, right? And so
Exactly.
I love that you brought that into the conversation, and that us as white people are not, our gaze upon Black people is not what's important. It's
No, look inward. White
right.
people look inward. And I'm going to say this, figure out the shit inside of you that makes you think that it's okay that someone else is beneath you. That is something that's not okay. Like, what is it inside of you as a community, inside of an individual, that gives you the superiority complex, or feels like you need a superiority complex to compensate for something? Like, what is going on that makes you think that it's okay to not even on the, like, of course, the extreme cases that are happening right now, but the unspoken white privilege and the white woman privilege that's there. What's inside of you that makes that okay? And work on that. Like, that's your shit to solve. Like, that's y'all shit. We can't help you with that.
Yeah, I think that's a sentiment that has been shared by all of our speakers this week. It's just do your own work, look inside, stop looking outside for the answer. I mean, that's
the answer to everything, right?
That's the answer to everything. Yeah.
No magic pill. No magic pill.
Well,
you're doing a great job, friend. Thank you for sharing your platform. This is awesome.
My baby platform.
Stop saying that. Thank you for sharing your platform. And to the well-meaning white people that will listen to you that would never have access or hear these thoughts from someone else.
Oh, well, I hope, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your time. Thank you for sharing your amazing wisdom. And yeah, I dropped your link to your website in the Facebook Live comments, but if there's anything else you want to drop in there, feel free, obviously.
Website's good. And I'll be able to repost and share this, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll send you a bunch of different ways you could do that. Yep.
You're gonna have to walk me through Facebook.
Okay, I can do that. Oh, thank you everyone for joining us. I'm sure this is public, so feel free to share it, and go find Morgan on all of her platforms. She's very much on Instagram. Find her. Awesome. Thanks, Morgan. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Sasha, for being here. Bye, guys.